Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome at Spark Map. This is our recently renovated event space. Thanks for joining us on our Academy Night. The weather conditions were not that easy, so I think it was not that easy to get here. Thank you for being here. I'm Nicola. I'm one of the partners of Bundl. I'll be your host for tonight, so I'll do the easy job. The real rock stars are Thomas, Anna, I don't know where she is, and Afonso. They are the speakers for tonight. The goal of today is actually quite simple. It's to learn new stuff and to get in touch with like-minded people and have a drink, have a chat, eat something afterwards. So before we start, I'd like to give a little bit of context about Bundl and explain very shortly what we do, because afterwards we will dive into the methodologies, how we tackle ideation sprints. So it's quite important that you get the bigger picture. So at Bundl, we build startups together with corporations. We do this from scratch until this new venture or startup is in the market. So we go end to end. This means we go way beyond post-it sessions. So we don't see ourselves as innovation consultants. We see ourselves as entrepreneurs that work together with the intrapreneurs within the corporate. We do this for companies like Luminous. We do this for companies like Internet. But we also do this for companies like, for example, Turfs. Turfs is one of the bigger SMEs in Belgium, so you don't have to be a company of 2,000 people to start with tailor-made venture. Nowadays, a lot of companies are tackling disruptive innovation via investments in startups and scale-ups. And actually, what we try to do is to disrupt from the inside out instead of disrupting outside in. So we start from your business challenge, and together with your entrepreneurs, we build this venture together. So that's quite important, or a big difference. We always compare the corporate with the tanker ship, which is totally not agile. And our goal is to build a small speedboat next to the mothership with a dedicated team, which is agile until this new venture is in the market. We do this with true venture builders. So this means the people that will present today all have either startup experience in the past or are still having a startup as a hobby on the side. So it's really important that guiding and building startups is in our genes or in our DNA, in everybody that's in the company. We built these ventures tailored to your DNA, which is a big difference because when you buy an existing startup or an existing scale-up, you have to take it as it is, and then you have to integrate it within your company. We start from your DNA and we build upon your assets. So therefore, tailor-made ventures. And yeah, obviously, we have our own playbooks. We have our own methodologies. This is actually one of the topics of today, and how to run the perfect ideation sprint. So it's most of the times a huge hack for the entrepreneurs that we're working with. Typically, our process is structured in 3 different steps. So in the beginning, we invent and elaborate new business models or products or services together with entrepreneurs. After that, we try to we build the first minimum viable product together with the company to prove first market traction. And after that, if you're able to close, if you're able to convince the management, we go to the startup launch, where we are involved in launching this new business and even hiring future CEO, future CMO in this new venture. So I think it's very important to state that this end-to-end thing is very important for us, because we believe this is key to really kind of push this venture in the market. Otherwise, there's a big risk of having a good idea, but not like launching it and disappearing somewhere in a lot of innovation initiatives. The core or the focus of today is the first stage. So we call this, in the first phase, we work towards a value proposition pitch. So at that moment, we want to close the first amount of funding, which we call garage funding. And in this process, there is ideation sprints is very important. So we use an ideation sprint to go very fast from a business challenge to tangible value propositions or products and services. In this strategy, we also incorporate user and corporate validation to kind of to understand the potential of this new business. But this is not kind of the focus of today. So today we're focusing on how to plan the perfect ideation sprint and how to boost your creativity in such an invention track. So I'm going to show a quick video about this ideation sprint and what is actually in there. So I think this is quite clear. For this evening, as I said, we have 3 speakers. So Alfonso is going to say something more about how to get in the right mindset to perform in an optimal way during the sprint. Thomas is going to tell us something more about how to plan the perfect sprint. So normally it's really hands-on, but today it's going to be a bit more theoretical. And then the last part is Hannah. She's going to explain something more on which visualization methodologies that we use to convince people during these sprints. So yeah, a big applause for our first speaker, Alfonso. Thank
you. Good evening. How are you? I met a few of you before we started, but my name is Alfonso. What is that? It's a name. You can call me Fonz, because if you have a question, just don't hesitate because you can't say my name. I get that a lot, and I don't want you to feel uncomfortable now. My part here is to focus on the fact that how do you put teams together? How do you get them to work together? It's not easy. It's not easy, and right now we have a group of people in the room, and when you start an ideation sprint, the mood needs to be right. But we don't all know each other. So with that in mind, what's happening here? That is Jerry Seinfeld. He's a comedian, right? And why is he on my first line? Because I want you to do an exercise with each other. And I'll do it first so you can understand what you're going to do. I want you to turn to the person to your right. If you end up not having someone to your right, look at behind you. If you don't have someone behind you, it's me. You're going to tell me what's going on. What are you going to tell them? You're going to tell them something which is not on your LinkedIn profile. So I'm just going to start, and then you do it to the person to your right only, which is, I took a stand-up comedy course with Stefan Rosenfeld, who is the director of the Institute of Comedy of the US and had association with Seinfeld in his career. And I did it with my grandmother, by the way. Of course, that's not on my LinkedIn profile, but it's more interesting. So I'm going to give you 1 minute, just to the person to your right, tell them something that they would not find on your LinkedIn profile. Is that cool? It's cool. Okay. Start the clock. See, it's more fun. This is when B2B becomes not boring to boring, but actually something very interesting. Yeah. The message is you have to start with an icebreaker, right? And what we're going to talk about today, I'm going to give you my 5 core rules when setting up the sprint. But there's one tip, right? And that tip is start with an icebreaker. And we at Bundl always want to start with an icebreaker. We really want to understand what makes you tick. And maybe some people found out something different, exquisite, definitely not on LinkedIn profile. Now, if it works for LinkedIn, and I can say that because I have worked at LinkedIn, it works for us. But there's a ton of other icebreaker ideas of what we can do, which is, what was the first ever paid job you had? What's your breakfast? That's very weird. I can tell you that by experience. One activity you wish you were better at. Now, that's tricky because if you're starting to work with people and you say you're not good, let's say, with business modeling, I'm probably not going to call you later, but make sure that you use things that people engage with and they get excited. And if you have time, 2 truths, 1 lie, and they get to guess which one's the lie. So my first tip, start with an icebreaker. You get to know each other, you get to find out a little bit more about each other, and who knows, at coffee break, you might come together. But those aren't rules, and I'm going to start by my rules. My rules all revolve around velocity. Velocity to me has 5 rules, but in theory, there's only 3 rules to velocity. The first one is core to velocity, which is discipline. If you're going to kick off a sprint, people need to know where the boundaries are, where the goalposts are. How are we going to do this? And that is why I have this axis here. The host, what do I care about and what I should care about? In this case, Nico or myself who've been on stage. If you get to be on stage, you're the host as well. And attendee, what you should care about and what you actually care about. So very crudely, we all care about coffee. That's the first thing in the sprint. Do people know where the coffee machine is? The host wants coffee, you want coffee. But what do attendees really care about? What's the Wi-Fi password? How am I going to get any work done? What's my WhatsApp saying? Especially if you're in a cave, which is not the case. And then what you should care about is this in everybody's calendar? And as an attendee, you should be caring, am I in the right room with the right people, and have I canceled everything else? Because otherwise, you're not going to focus on your sprint. And lastly, where's the bathroom? Hosts need to let you know where the bathroom is, because you will need it if you're doing a sprint. So the message behind all this is overshare. This is a picture of Instagram food porn. I don't know if everyone's actually Googled this. I now have. And this is what comes up. Overshare, overkill. Yes, we have WhatsApp numbers, we have emails, we have calendars. People need to know what is expected of that day. And that's how you install discipline. Yes, you might be the annoying one, but guess what? You need to make sure that people feel energized and they're ready for the challenge. So discipline is my rule number 1. Rule number 2, if you have velocity, you have a direction. You're going somewhere, right? And you're going somewhere as a journey together. And that is why you will see that I have a few post-its back there. And yes, I am going to ask you to do an exercise with me. I'm going to ask you to get a post-it from the table down there. And I'm going to ask you for 20 seconds just to reflect the last time you traveled. And think of it, what you did. There was planning, booking, getting there, while you were there, and getting back. Was there something in your last experience that could have been just a little bit better? You know, that line was too long, I couldn't really book the hotel I wanted, the price was too high, the service was too bad. There's always something that could be a little bit better. I'm gonna ask you if you can remember that, and please just write it down on a Post-it, and you'll see on the tables back there, there's 5 sheets laying down, glued to the table, and it's actually planning, booking, getting there, while you were there, coming back. Can I ask you in 4 minutes if each one of you could just write one Post-it of something that could have been a little bit better and put it on one of those sheets? Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah? It's just 4 minutes?
Yes.
Anyone confused? Questions? I know you just sat down. I know it's annoying to get up again, but it keeps the room warm. Let's go. At this point, we should have played music, I'm sorry, but especially for those in the live stream, if you can think about what's not on your LinkedIn profile, that would be great. You're welcome to call in and let us know. A few more seconds, you think? 20 more seconds, people think? Yeah. Start to see people come back. Okay. I think for the purpose of the live stream later, we'll take pictures, not exactly the words you put down, but to see the quantity of blue and green Post-its on those sheets. It's amazing. Everyone could always have a better experience. So if we go back to point 1, you need discipline. You need to know where the bathrooms are. Is there Wi-Fi? What are we doing here? Point 2, is there a direction? This is what we're doing. Point 3, do we have speed? Already, I've asked you to do 2 exercises in 10 minutes. I would say, yes, we have speed. But what is also key to that speed when you're running a sprint is Ernie and Bert, they go hand in hand. If you have pals in the room, don't separate them. A lot of people in their sprints love saying, I want to mix the synergies. It's not going to work. If there are synergies and people love working together, let them work together. Because if you don't, they will want to get away from the process. So allow people who know each other to get to know each other even better. So these 3 things, these are the core principles of velocity. And yes, it is published under velocity in the book. It is explained differently. But these things to me is what gets everyone on board. They know where they need to go. This is a ship that is sailing now, and it has speed, direction. But then, there's ruthlessness. What is ruthlessness? What I mean by this is some people will not want to go on the journey. Now, this is actually scary because if you go to Wikipedia, you can find sleeping while on duty. If you scroll down, airline pilots. It is actually very, very scary. Air traffic controllers, bus drivers, and police officers are the 4 categories of people who sleep on the job. I'm not criticizing them, I'm just saying that I was scared when I found this. But the point of this slide is some people will not want to be in the journey for the sprint. Now, the problem with that is you, as a host or a mentor of the sprint, need to bring them back in. But you cannot make the whole group go back. The whole group needs to move forward. Things will sail. Things will function. We will get to solutions. So you need to be a little bit ruthless when you're running a sprint. You don't have the luxury of time. So if people know where they're going together, it's going to be more fruitful for everyone. And my last one is, to embrace true velocity, you need voice. You need to hear each other. You need to allow people to voice their concerns, their ideas, to present if they want to. And with that in mind, we're going to do the second exercise. I've been sitting for 2 minutes, so you can get back up. Now, this part, as you see, the post-its now are orange and pink when you get there. I would like you to go to the table and choose a problem that you see there, could be any, your own or anybody else's, and reflect what could have they done to make that experience better. Let's say we take a post where someone says, you know what, I will spend too much time in line to check in for my plane. Well, you could have actually checked this website and taken care of booking a restaurant when you get to your destination. So my ask of you is, and yes, this is a second exercise to hear your voices and your ideas and your world into this direction, which is, could each one of you just look at a problem and say, oh, I know an app which is interesting, and just put a post-it. Can I ask that of you? It's, again, 4 or 5 minutes, just to get you a little bit into the mood of what we're going to do today. It's getting hot. Needed music for this part. How are you? Don't worry about reading them all. If you see a problem you like, just if you know a website that can help, that'll be great. Should have put music in these parts for a little bit of ambiance. Yeah, let's keep on the live stream.
You haven't discussed this with the sound anyway.
Ah, yeah? We have 10 people on now, right? Thanks.
So we can do it.
If you can start making your way back down the great. Last Okay, we have 14 post-its and 3 people still filling in post-its, so 14, 15, 16. So thank you for doing that. Because by doing these two things, you unlock purposeful wild thinking. Wild thinking is where you make associations. Someone had a problem in there, and we have around 16 different solutions for the problems that are out there. Now, what we did here is exactly get you into the mood of understanding what we do in the sprint. We act quick, we find a direction, we act with discipline, and we come back and we understand that we're unlocking associations. If these people now were to talk to each other and find out who said they had this problem, who said they had this solution, that's even beyond what you did with understanding what's not on your LinkedIn profile. And that's exactly what you're doing. It's a process. And especially if you want to run your sprints in your corporate companies or in your own companies, and you need to have stakeholder buy-in, it's by showing that it's a purpose with these 5 principles of velocity that you're able to show you will be able to deliver. You will definitely be able to learn, and you will bring innovation that day just from connecting the wild thinking and all the great brains that you have in the room. So that's actually the process. But I have my 3 golden rules of what not to do. As I told you earlier, yes, don't separate Ernie and Bert. They don't like it. It's not going to work. The first one is, do not make room for an impromptu poll. An impromptu poll is when people say, I don't like where this is going. I would like to vote whether we continue or not. Don't do that. Don't accept that. Because that's black and white. That's not gray. To say, let's create a framework to evaluate what are the gray tones here, what we're doing, yes. But polls, do not start with polls unless you know that it's a voting mechanism, that it was part of the plan. The second one is, don't stick to the script. For example, if now you read that and you find out that people are not at all interested in traveling, I probably need to change the script a little bit. Or if people want to actually move to a different direction and look at more validation sprints or value proposition sprints. But don't be afraid to change the script according to what the needs of the audience is. And the third one, and never, and how do I press play here? There you go, Nico, sorry. Make the guy who hates presenting, present. Bottom? Oh, it's the bottom laptop. I've been looking at the wrong one the whole time.
No, it's still the bottom.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
I remind you that the poem is called
17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28.
Okay, I'm going to stop this. It's painful. You
29.
see, some people just hate presenting. So don't make them present because the message will not land. And that for me has been a really important thing to understand. So these are the 5 principles to get started into a sprint that I want to leave you with. I hope it gets you in the mood. And if it doesn't, I am going to ask you to stand up one last time. Now, this one is a little bit more complicated. Do people know, and if you don't know, put your hand up, rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors. You don't know?
Never done.
You'll do it today, but you know that rock, paper, scissors. The first rule is actually that rock, paper, scissors is actually 1, 2, and then you show it at 3. A lot of people cheat and they go 1, 2, 3, and then they show it. It's 1, 2, and then at 3. Now this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna play against each other. Winners play with winners, losers are out. One try, that's it, that's all. If you lose once, you're out. The losers will have to cheer for the next winner. And cheer for the next winner. And eventually in this room, we will have 1 rock, paper, scissors winner. Is that clear or questions? Okay, you just have to do it once. Do it to the person next to you. If you lose, move to the next winner. And winners play with winners until we get there, okay? Try Is that the finale? Okay, so that concludes exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. Is get you in the middle. I want to thank you for doing 3 times, for doing 3 exercises, and for understanding that it's about putting you through this process. It should be fun. It should be lively. We just have to win and beat a room of 20-odd people, and it's amazing to be able to feel that vibe, and with that, get you in the mood for learning. Okay, now what's the substance behind all of this? Cool. So that's all from me. I'll be here for any question and answers, participating on the rest. And I'm going to hand over to Thomas. Take the rest.
Hello. I'm going to get more of it into the theoretical part. I'll make it as fun as I can about how to plan your ideal ideation sprint, because I think some of you guys have come here to see how we actually do those sprints, not only to get into the mood of it. I'm Thomas, I'm one of the co-founders, and I'm head of venture at Bundl. I've been running a couple of ideation sprints already with Bundl. We're actually doing one this week in this room. We've been doing it today with Julie and Hannah and Jan, who's out here. So basically, I'm going to repeat, I think Nico's already showed one video about how it looks like. I'm going to show one more video of us and Dylan, and then you will see a lot of tools and people walking around, brainstorming, and the ideas that I explain you afterwards, what's actually happening during that week. So here's another preview. So basically what you see here is a lot of people with post-its, and you see drawings, and it seems always from the outside it's like a couple of people doing something fun in their room, but we're actually trying to get somewhere together, and that's what I'm trying to explain. First of all, there is always the usual suspects that have to be there, and that's, as Alfonso was saying, you have to get all aligned with people that are there, and therefore we have some characters that are always part of the show. And the characters that that are always there is one is a facilitator. The other one is the management, can be multiple people. You have the sprinters themselves, you have the visual designers, and then you have your customer. These are mostly the people involved in your ideation sprint. Now, to start off with the facilitator, and I think Afonso is one of them in many of our sprints, as well as I do, some of the senior designers here. The reason why you have to be senior is because these people, he or she always runs the show. It's one person that has the full track in hands. That means that they're a bit the guru of the tools and methodologies. They also have to be a little bit the people, as Afonso said, that have to be able to improvise, and to be able to improvise, you have to be quite senior to actually be doing that kind of stuff. And sometimes they participate in the sprints if necessary. It's not always a recommendation that you do it, because if you do it, you have two jobs at the same hand, and it's quite difficult to be and the creative person and the facilitator at the same time. But if you're a small group, I can recommend it. The second one is the management. They make the tough decisions. It's like if you see the bunch of people brainstorming, there is always 3 hard moments during the sprint when it gets a bit more silent. And when they enter the room and when they say, this costs too much, this is not going to work in our production system, this is not going to work for our target group. So they make the tough decision. Mostly it's 2 to 4 people coming out of the higher level corporate management. And as I said, they hop in as 5 experts. We do not let them mostly not participate in the sprint, and there is a very clear reason why. They have problems with, or mostly, I'm not saying in every case, but I've seen 80% of them having problems with thinking outside of their current box because there's so much focus on the targets that they have to align with that it's very difficult to really get them in the creative process themselves. They don't feel comfortable mostly. So they align the generate concept with the higher goals, as I mentioned. Then there is an optional, a group that I didn't show in the first slide, which is the experts, and they are called in as they help making decisions. For example, if a company, for example, Telnet has moved in our last case, the one that I showed on video, we moved into VR, into the virtual reality space, and there is actually no one of Telnet that is very familiar with that space. And also we have other concepts that they were not familiar with. At that moment, the voice of the management, in our opinion, is not so important anymore because they don't know actually how big the market is and what difficulties are in that market. And at that moment, you call in experts that are already familiar with that market, and you let them join at the same moments of the management to help them make the decision. So these can be industry experts, they can be technology experts, business experts, they can come outside of the company, or they can also sometimes, if you have a specific technology guy in your company, they join at that moment as well to make the decisions. And then you have the sprinters themselves. They are the guys that come up with the magic. It's mostly a mix of competences within the company. It's not all just the creative people. We mostly mix the technology with marketing, with every department that we can have, so that we know that all the knowledge of the company is in one room. And it's also mostly a healthy balance between people that have an inside-out perspective, so that people think from within the company, and also that people that come from outside the company to stretch and to work together. And they're full dedicated during the sprint week, so they're there for the full week. And then you have the visual designers, and they play a very important role in the design sprint because they make things sexy and they make them tangible. There's a lot of concept and posters that you see out there, but I didn't see so many management people get hungry for concepts because of just post-its hanging around. You need to make it tangible, you need to make a mock-up, you need to make it happen. And we really go for that stretch in 1 week as well. And then, not to forget, and I will talk about it later on as well, I think this is a typical character of your customer. This is, in the end, your one and true validation. It's also the biggest danger of the sprint week is you've been hanging around with people for 5 days in one room thinking about all kinds of things, but there is a big danger if you do not validate this with your customer. So that's a very important rule. For us, this character is mostly involved before the sprint or after. We do not, in our case, we do not ask customers to generate ideas with us. They're very, very good in saying what they want, or let's say more what they find not interesting or what they find crappy about your service today. And they're also able to say, if you show them, that's what I want, and that's what I don't want, but they're not so good in telling you what they really want. You have to help them. So that's a bit the role of the customer. And as you can see, there is 7 to 20 here. That means that we mostly, with sprint weeks, work with very small groups in qualitative ways. So it means interviews. And we think the minimum group, and it scares a lot of companies if we say that, but I think we can already say that with 7 people, you already know a lot from the feedback that you will have. Mostly, you know already 70 or 80% what the other people are going to say eventually from the interviews that you're going to do. Sometimes it runs up to 20. If we go higher, that doesn't really happen so much in sprint weeks. It happens mostly in the later phases when we are validating. Then we go more to quantitative research, which is more sometimes up to 100, 200 people, or landing pages online where we see how many people click. So that goes up to a lot more. So that's your customer. Now, if you look at the ideal program, there is actually, we talk about an ideal sprint week, but it's actually much more than a week. If you look at the process, you have the sprint week over here, but what happens before is much more important than what happens just in the week. As Alfonso just mentioned before, if you don't get aligned on the right target in your intake, the chance is very big that you're going to get through a lot of cool concepts during your week, but you're never really going to get where you really want. The second one is deep dive, which is for us a very important one. It's where you dive into trends and context about the concept itself to actually fuel your sprint week. So it gives a bit more dedication to it. And then you have the validation where you validate with your customer, and then there is your finish part afterwards. So as I said, the intake itself, there we work with the facilitator, the management, and the expert. This is enough. If you have a 4-hour workshop to really align on the goal and team. Secondly, fueling the sprint week with the trends and context. This can be just done by the sprinters, the facilitators. They really basically do desk research. It doesn't have to be like all the people want every research to be like months and months of research. We do it in a couple of weeks, and it just has a more of a function as really fuel. And the last one is the customer, which means sometimes we do, not always, but we do need detection, which means we ask customers what they find frustrating about your current service, or what they find frustrating about your current product. This takes about 1 to 2 weeks. As you see, this is not a 3 months research. We do it sometimes, but then we work with external companies. And then you come to the sprint week itself, which I think is the main thing we're talking about today, where you jump from scratch to concepts, where everyone is on board, the facilitator, management, sprinters, and designers, except for the customers out there. And as I mentioned before, the experts are optional in this program if you want. Now, validation is a very important phase afterwards, where you present your mock-ups to customers and where you talk about those mock-ups and see how they actually react to what you've thought about for a few weeks. This can be done facilitated sprinters and customer. It takes about 1 to 2 weeks, so it's a couple of interviews really packed into 2 weeks. And then, where again, the experts are a bit optional. And then there is the finishing up and getting ready for the next steps. I get back to this afterwards. But this is, of course, a very important phase where you don't let your idea die, but where you actually do something with it afterwards as well. So if you look at the sprint week itself, if you zoom in, there is 5 days that it consists of. The first day is the kickoff, where we have basically where we align the people and where we kind of do the first ideation, but the real ideation happens in the second day. The third day is the decision day, where we have to eliminate some of these ideas. Day 4, we spend on visualizing, and day 5 is pitch day. I'm going to show you today a case that we've worked around in these 5 days, which was with Double Pass. And does anyone know Double Pass in here? You can raise your hand. This is a company that helps bigger soccer, like for example, Real Madrid or big teams, to help them to optimize their player potential. Like, so they're focused on youth optimization. So, and they asked us, we as a company, what is the next thing that we could become in the future? So this is a case that we worked on. So to give you an idea of day 1, what we do there is we have the trends that we fuel at that moment. So it means what we've worked around in the deep dive we present it to them to give them inspiration, and then we work with them to do a first brainstorm. That's what you can see here. At that point, we have tools like persona analogies. We work in different groups with, I think this is was a group around 8 people, where mostly the first day is still, in general, this is a very fun day because nobody is still alive, is still aware that on day 2 or day 3 they have to make decisions. So this is mostly the out-of-the-box day where everybody's still very free in thinking. But then you go to day 2, where it gets already a bit more serious, where you have to get all your ideas in a second brainstorm, and then eventually have to try to frame them on a concept card. And that's what you see right here, where people have, with minimal drawings and with basic value proposition concept cards, they have to really present their ideas to the group. And at that moment, we're going from, in the previous slide was 50 ideas, and here you go to about 10 concepts that we have, where we use very simple tools like voting with dots, and it works really well to get first like opinions in the group. It doesn't mean you find a concept at all yet, you get to a first concept. And then on day 3, it gets a bit more in depth. At that moment you have concepts, and at the end of the day you want to go through 3 concepts. So that's basically, you come from 10 to 15, where the management comes in the morning, and basically on what you see right here, based on that, they make decisions. And that means that we at that moment show them elaborated concept cards where you have first indication of revenue streams, where you have first indication of key features, but also really visual implications of how could this, in this case it was an application, how could it actually look like? And this was an application that was built around how the management of Real Madrid could get a more data analytical view of the players. The setup is in this case. Then if you move to day 4, this day, at that moment, the most of the creative part is done conceptual, but everything that happens now in the creative part is how can we actually make it tangible? And that moment you see screens like you see right here, and there is that we try to make these concepts as tangible as possible. So if we explain it to a customer or to the management afterwards, that it goes a lot further than just a post-it. So that happens on day 4, and where there is also, while these are mostly split up in 2 groups, one is the more graphical team that implements their concepts, while another team, in this case was Nicholas, working still on the business model and how they work more on the numbers around the pitch, how this could actually make sense from a revenue perspective or in any other perspective that they still have to elaborate on. So the end point of that day is 3 mock-ups, where on the last day, you try to go to the real pitch for the management, where you see a bit the screens that we had at that point. They're a bit flipped, so you cannot see everything in there. But these were 3 concepts based on, one was focused around the player of soccer, how the player can actually optimize himself. And the other one was more focused around how the management of Real Madrid, for example, could get more insights in their players. So we had 3 concepts in there that were presented to the management, and that is what we do in 1 week. So that gives a good idea how you can start from in day 1, a very playful, funny brainstorm with trends and insights, leaving in the end of the week with a pitch that talks about revenue stream, that talks about how is it going to look, and that gives a clear insight on where the strategy of the company could go again. So again, you go from 50 ideas to 10 draft concepts, to 3 concepts, 3 mock-ups, and then 1 pitch. I have some other notes on this. If you talk about the management, these are the moments that we involve the management. So it means in the very beginning to align everyone on where they want to go in the sprint, and to give insights also on the trends, and to see that they give some kind of order or limitations. We can't go into this space, we can't go into that space, so don't bother. Or they give basic framing. They come back on day 3. That's a pretty hard moment, because that moment they have to select 3 concepts with everyone in the group. And at the end, of course, in the pitch, because that's basically where they're going to decide if they want to spend further funding on the project itself. So that's what happens there. As I said before, the expert is optional, and we also see only one point where that expert can come, and that's on the third day to assist the management in making decisions. And then visual designers, mostly in our team, those come only in at day 4. Before this can all be done without visual designers. Post-its, concept cards is more than enough. But if you want to make it tangible for your audience, you can actually just do it on the last 1.5 days. And there you can also see the speed at which we have to work at that point. You have 1.5 days to visualize it, so that means we will not talk about where the button has to be or which kind of number. It's just you go and you basically build a first draft. What we have learned in the past is if you look at the Google Ventures approach of Google Sprints or anything, you always read that it's a sprint week. What we have seen in most cases is that actually when the management has come in, they need some more time to think about it. You try to squeeze it in a week and you can do it. I mean, we've done it already a couple of times. But a lot of times we developed those 2 days further, and the management switched their ideas on Monday, so they just wasted 2 days of work. And that happens quite often. And what we do now is that mostly this is a Monday in real life, in our case. But after Wednesday, we just take a little break and we come back on Monday, we take decisions, and then we put the last 2 days in. It's a 2 days delay, but it makes a big difference. Otherwise, you already went way too far in pitching something that eventually they don't want. So this is a bit of a tip that I'm giving you in this, because we see a lot of Google Sprints approaches where you say you can do everything in a week. But the decision moment where you have to go from 11 to 3 is so impactful. This is sometimes a pretty peaceful, good way to work. The bigger the company, the more I recommend it. If it's a small company, there's a chance that you can actually do it. Afterwards, because it's not finished after that, you have to get feedback from potential customers, as I said before. I'm not going to jump into this completely. I wanted to focus mainly around what we do in a week, in the sprint week itself. There, afterwards, you spend 1 to 2 weeks in validating with customers in depth interviews to get really with the framework that you've seen before from the wireframes, to get feedback from them. And then, as you can see here, we're finally there. But that's, for us, the most critical point where we see a lot of ideas in companies get into the fridge and they never get out again. It's you validate with your customer, they come back, we pitch, we say the results. There is no next step defined, and it just evaporates. And I don't know if anyone here is already, you don't have to have been in design sprint, but who can raise hands that have ever had ideas that we worked around for days, sometimes even weeks, sometimes even longer, have been in the fridge? I'm sure. I thought so, that it was going to be mostly of this room. And that is what we call innovation is for us not a one-night stand. It's like a lot of people see brainstorms as some kind of fun experience where in the end, it feels very nice because you leave the room and you're like, oh yeah, that was a great idea and we had a great time and everything. And then you talk back about it in a couple of weeks and you're like, what have we actually been doing? We just wasted 2 days or 3 days of our time. We hired external consultants. We spent 20,000 euros in this, and actually we still didn't get anywhere. So that is how we kind of compare to one extent. I haven't had so much in mind, but I guess it must be the same experience. So the process doesn't stop there, but it's actually just getting started. Also, something I wanted to highlight is some of our favorite tools that we use. If you want to think about where your company is now and where you want to go, the approach I like a lot is to force your group, and force is maybe a wrong word to hear, but it's actually good to put people in a certain funnel, is to make people think, because now it can be everything, right? If you see your company's here, where to grow, it goes everywhere. But then if you help them and you say, for example, you give examples like General Motors has, for example, built the corporate startup Maven, which is moving from ownership of cars to rental services. If you let people think within this funnel and think, how can you move from ownership to rental services, it makes it easier for them to think within funnels and to generate ideas like that. Another example is that, for example, Heineken moved from business to business to consumer with Beerwolf. or doodled recently bought. I forgot the name of the brand itself, but it's a tea, it's a natural tea, and actually it's still within drinks, but it's a completely new target group that they're reaching out to this. And it's interesting that what we do is what we call analogy thinking. That's my tool number one, which I like a lot. We basically give canvases to people where we force them to use the sheet to generate ideas on how you can reach a destination from your company above in a new venture, basically thinking from ownership and rents. It makes it very simple. Like the big thing is how are we going to move our next strategy? And here we're just asking, can you think about rental services? And that makes it, if you put a lot of these frames out there, it helps people think in a certain direction. So that's one. Again, it's a great tool to think in different business models. Otherwise, they won't be very much thinking into them. A second one is if you have your concept ready or you kind of have an idea, venture canvases or concept cards, as they are, we use them a lot to build new startups, sometimes also build new services for your company. We use the venture canvases in which you really have to define your idea clearer than what you do in your post-it. Some people have an idea and they think like, yeah, it's ready. But then when they're forced to think, what is your real target group? What is the real opportunity that you're aiming for? What is the solution that you're actually bringing? What are the key features? And can you try to draw it out how the customer journey goes from I want this, where is he going to buy it? How is he going to get it delivered? And how is it going to be the experience along the whole way? That actually helps if you give people kind of a framework to think about this. And then of course also where the revenue stream is going to come from. A lot of people have very nice ideas, but then always this question comes like, yeah, but how are we going to make money with this? And then they're like, oh yeah, I don't know yet to have it. That wouldn't be an issue. People would just like to do it, but it's important that you already have a clear idea about your revenue streams. And then also about your go-to-market. You might have an amazing idea, but then there is, what are you going to launch in 3 months? That's a question that is very difficult for a lot of people to answer. Well, yeah, in 3 months, then you have to think a lot smaller, and you have to think in a minimum valuable product, and then suddenly your big idea gets very small, in which you get to go to the market. And then there's, in our case, a lot of times the decision, are you going to make it or are you going to buy it? It's are you going to develop something or are you just going to go and hack a third-party developer to get somewhere faster? Or are you going to do an M&A to get it in your company? Those are options that you have at a certain point. And this canvas forces you to think about all these questions, which basically, if you have this done, you can pitch your venture already in this first concept. So it's a great tool to make your concept tangible. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with this one, but it's still something which is one of my favorites. It's a persona exercise where we basically put a certain target group in the middle. It's a bit comparable to the analogy thinking. There you're thinking the funnel of business models. This is fine, you want to have this whole idea, but now you're making it for a 50-year-old. Now in this case, you're making it for a guy of 23 and he's a sales guy. And it's like, okay, but he's not going to buy in the store, he's going to buy online. So how are we going to improvise on that, and how can the idea change? So we define different areas. I haven't filled them in this case because it's still blank. And basically we think for it in 2 levels. One is, what are the needs and challenges of these people without their solution? And then how can you come up with solutions that actually think on these needs and challenges to tackle them from a different way. So it's a great tool to explore different customer needs. The other one, analogy thinking, starts more from business models. This starts 100% from your customer itself. And the mix of them is mostly the interesting factor. The last one is something that I wanted to share because I thought it's developed by one of our venture builders, Manu, and I like this one a lot. It's called Flip and Shake. I'm not sure if it's used a lot, but we use it sometimes if people get stuck in, it's mostly, first day is very fun in the brainstorm, second day, half, it gets a bit difficult. People get stuck in their ideas and they kind of have it, and they don't want to be there sometimes anymore because they're like, okay, I gave my ideas, I want to be now. So then this one is a very cool one. It's basically built with dice, and what you do is you're being forced to put one of your ideas at the start, and depending on where the dice is, you have to either change the business model, change the service, or add an additional service or combine it. In this case, if you have an idea here or there, you have to combine the two and mix them in a new idea. So basically, you don't have to think too much. At that point, you're just being forced by the board game to get to new ideas. And you would be surprised which 5 ideas come in the end. That's really an interesting one if you want to have some fun surprise ideas and you get stuck in brainstorm. This is one of the photographs of it where we played with Dylan, and you see as the people are smiling. It's a good, it's a good Tuesday. No, there is always this dip point in every brainstorm, and this is one of the ways to get out of it. And of course, there are still a lot of more, but I didn't want to present too much in business model canvas and customer unit because I'm sure that most of you, or 80% in the room, has heard of them, and of course you use them. But those other ones are more my favorites to work. So that is my part. Thank you very much. I give the word to Hannah because she's going to dive much more. I was kind of more in the theory part, and she's going to get more into the different visualization styles we use in each phases of the process.
You're all still awake, still enthusiastic. If you want to go to the bathroom, just don't hesitate to just go. And also, if you need a stretch or walk around a bit, I cannot sit still during these presentations, so it's not all together. If you need to stretch, go ahead. So my name is Hannah. I'm a venture builder at the Bundl. But often I switch roles with the usual suspects that Thomas presented already, and I become a visual designer because I learned to sketch when I was a child, and also because there are a lot of tools out there to help you to visualize. I think my presentation is divided in 3 parts. So the first part is to show you the importance of visualization, because Thomas said it's to make things sexy and tangible. But there comes way more to it. It's way more important than just to look sexy and tangible. The second part is, I call it the show-off part. It's where we Bundl show you how great we are at visualization. And along the process that Thomas presented, I'll show you all the different visualizations we did before. And then the most interesting part is the third part. That's where I'll show you how you can all become visual designers. Because I believe there's a visual designer in everyone. So I have, I think, more or less 6 tools that can help you to make things look sexy. So hang in there because the end is the most important. First, I would like to dive deeper into the importance of visualization. And I'd like to invite you to read the next slide. And as soon as you know what the slide is talking about, just raise your hand. This is a Wikipedia explanation of an invention. Okay, I'll help you with a visual. It's just a wheel, so it's a really long explanation, and it's really what's on Wikipedia. So this is really made peer-to-peer for you to understand what the invention of the wheel is about. And I think this super easy sketch explains it way faster. So that already explains the speed communication takes when you visualize it. The second example, who of you knows what a yuppie is? Can you explain it?
Well, that's on the slide. Typically somebody who's well educated and has a certain level for repairs and the city.
That's indeed the definition, but if you try to like envision him and what he does on the daily life, this is a mood board. I think everyone is aware of the technique of mood board, but to get a grasp on the lifestyle of a yuppie, this really works well. You can easily show like the type of products he or she uses, what they look like, what they take as a mobility service, for example. So this really gives you in one grasp of an eye, an idea on their lifestyle. So again, way broader communication and way faster communication. But still, thank you for your explanation. And then the last one, this is an example of a patent which contains 5 pages. And I don't know if you really want to read it, I'm not going to let you do it, because it actually just explains this. So a super silly Lego brick needed 5 pages of text to explain why you can actually explain it in one visual. So I think these three quick examples hopefully give you an idea of the importance of visualization. But why is visualization important in ideation? Because that's what we're talking about today. I think there are four main benefits. There are many, many others, but I'd like to focus on these four. And the first one is it becomes self-explanatory. If you have a visual, you can just pass the visual around in the company, and you don't need a human factor anymore to do the voiceover to explain the idea. Just the visual speaks for itself, so you can beat humans. So that sounds great. And then the second one is it's a facilitator for communication. You often have it in the meeting room that you're discussing an idea, and you can keep discussing it and have several meetings, but only after someone said like, okay, so are we talking about the same thing? And he takes a pencil and a paper and he starts drawing it. It turns out that for 5 minutes you've been discussing something totally different. So by drawing it, you eliminate double interpretation and you facilitate the communication between two parties. The third one, I think I illustrated already in the 3 examples, so it's way faster to understand. And it also increases attention span. It's really way nicer to look at the presentation that is visual than to just look at the Word document or other text or just to listen to a voiceover. So it's also fun and more attractive for people, so it increases their attention span, which is also pretty nice nowadays. 3 examples of using visualization in an ideation sprint is the first one. You can use it to inspire your participants, like we showed with the mood board. If you have to generate ideas from your piece, you can show them the mood board first so they see the different aspects so you can inspire them. In a fun way, you can do it really broad and you can trigger them to come up with ideas. The second example number 3. Is to communicate your thoughts. So if you put pencils to paper, you can really quickly communicate your thoughts with someone else. While if you've been sprinting the entire day just talking, this really breaks the moment and it's really easy to communicate. And then this is also example number 3, is to pitch your ideas to a fly. And as Thomas presented, you have the management, which only have 15 minutes. They come in and they have to evaluate an idea. Really visually, you can really do it way quicker, you can do it way sexier. So also for the fly-ins of the management, this is really interesting to use visualization. If I start speaking too fast, it's because I've become too enthusiastic and also interrupting. So the different techniques that we use at Bundl for visualization, I will map them on the process that you've seen before. His presentation. Design thinking is thinking made visual, so I'll show you that in every step of the process. First, there's the intake. That's where we try to grasp everything that has been in the mind of the client. And these are drawings that I make. Sometimes they feel like I'm not really part of the meeting, but that's because I use this technique to first prolong my attention span, because sometimes I get distracted, but by drawing, I prolong my attention span and I'm able to listen to the client a bit longer. But also after the meeting, it's really a nice recap of what has been said. So this is really just the notes app you have on your iPhone with pencil. I see someone taking notes, so that's really a very quick way to show visually. Oh, nice. So it's really easy to do, and it's also really to share afterwards. Another technique we use during the intake, Thomas already showed a few of our visual posters. But for example, if we go and define the target group together with our clients, we try to make it as visual as possible. You see several options, like there's a family, there's a senior couple, and if you want to make the scope of the target group a bit smaller, then this is really an easy way to go. It's also still attractive, so you keep their attention span. And in combination with the mood board I showed before, this is really a visual way to define a target group. Otherwise, it might become pretty hard to explain who you're actually targeting. If we then jump to the next phase, the deep dive is the moment where we try to find as much information as possible. Here we try to grasp what Gen Z actually does, and we've been doing some desk research on the different numbers and figures, on what they spend their free time on, how they like to be approached and stuff. And by putting it in an infographic like this, you really get something that was before an Excel sheet with all these kind of numbers. You make it very tangible and you really insert this right away as an inspiration in your ideation sprint. So also this is a very formal topic and it's just number crunching, but because it's made visual, it inspires people. Then another one is when we dive into a certain target group, we make customer journeys. And all the thoughts or pain points or opportunities, we map them with a small sketch on these customer journeys. I was explaining really quickly. So we go to every stage of the process that our customer goes through, and we map all the questions or thoughts that they have. And it becomes really a big visual that you can also implement right away in your ideation sprint as an agency. Then we go to the sprint week. So this is the planning that Thomas showed before. And in each phase, you can actually implement visual thinking. The visual designer, as Thomas explained, is mostly focused here. But if you also implement visual thinking for yourself, you can actually do it throughout the entire process, throughout the entire week. You can do it via doodles. For the ideation phase, it's really interesting. It's, by the way, a very important feature because this was the very first ideation sprint with Bundl ever. So I think it's 5 years ago now. I really want to use it. And so what we do is we make these very small sketches on post-its. We see that even afterwards, if you map all of the post-its, if someone made a drawing, attention goes right away to the drawing because it just looks more attractive and people just like to look at visuals. So that's for the ideation phase. If you go a bit further and we go to the decision phase, you can do it via sketches. So what you see here is we made these canvases, and on top we really make these sketches to quick and dirty explain the different concepts. Then if you go towards the presentation or towards the pitch, we use mockups. So this is a quick explanation of all different features that could be involved in your concept. Another technique is digital sketches. So this is really like when you go towards a product solution, a tangible solution, you can use digital sketches to present your idea. And what we also do is landing pages. This landing page might seem familiar to some in the room. And then we just craft an entire landing page to explain the concept and bring it towards the next one. Really wants to show all of it, sorry guys. Then when we go towards the validation phase, it means that the output of the sprint, we show it to our customers in any kind of way. It could be an interview, could be an online questionnaire, but we get a lot of findings out of it, whether it's qualitative or quantitative. Still, all those findings, if you present them in a visual way, people will be attracted more. So this was an Excel sheet. And we transformed it so that it would also be interesting to look at. We took some numbers out to put a focus. We also implemented some qualitative insights. And this way you see that visualization is even important in a validation phase. Then we go to the last phase, and this is really where we start creating the pitch deck, including all the feedback from the customers. And then we go really towards interactive mockups, animated mockups. This is just made with Keynote, which is the Apple equivalent of PowerPoint, so it's really not that hard to make. And if you go one step further, we also have the next example, which is a video, so I hope the sound is still on. So this is the next slide I'm going to show you is actually a compilation of all kinds of YouTube videos. So we didn't shoot any of the video footage. So we just scraped the internet and put everything together to explain our concept in a very visual and animated way. This is really an example how visualization can bring a concept to life and can really convince people of the strength of it. And that's where we get to the last part, which are the simple hacks for you guys to also become a visual designer. I have a question for you. Who dares to say that they can draw? Okay. I actually like to claim that everyone can draw because there's a really simple technique behind it. Because actually most of the drawings are all constructed from a few geometric shapes. It's really easy if you have this library. I'd like to claim you can draw almost everything because it shows that if you change the proportion and the composition of this, it's a fish. So it's really easy, but you can already tell a story about a fish. Or if you change the composition a bit more, it's a house, you add a line, it's a house with a tree. So it's really easy to create sort of an idea of what you're talking about with just some geometric shapes. And with this, for example, you can already express genders. I think it's really clear that it's a female and a guy. And if you add a few lines, you can see that the female is really happy, and the guy is rather add some more lines, and you see that she's really, really, really happy, and he really doesn't know. And these are just lines in geometric shapes, so really don't hesitate to just pick up a pencil, because this might really strengthen your message to your colleague, towards your management. It really simplifies communication. So this is the easiest hack, but really experiment with it. It's really then the second one is Unsplash, which is a free website with a lot of nice pictures, and they're royalty free. So if you want to make a nice presentation with high definition pictures, then this is this one. Just to give an example, today, because we were in the snow, I looked up snow on Unsplash, and these are all the pictures I can find in high definition for free. So I really think that this would contribute to a nice pitch slide deck. The second tool I'd like to present to you is Canva. Anyone has heard of it? It's an Australian girl who developed it, and she really claims that there's a visual designer in everyone. So with this website, you can make logos, images, presentations, and infographics. And it's all just a web browser, so it's not like Adobe. You have to install all the software on your web page. This is really killing the graphical industry, by the way, because it's super easy. A few examples as well that I found on the website. So these are the logos you can make with graphics or flyers or anything else. It's really, really easy to do. There's a big library of graphical elements that you can just insert. You can start from scratch or you can start from tutorials. So Canva.com. The next tool is the Noun project. Most of you might be familiar with it. It's just a database with icons. As you see throughout our presentation, icons are really simple to strengthen your message. So here you can find them. There are some not so legal ways via screenshots to get them for free, but it's actually really not that expensive to just pay a subscription to it, and then you also have them in PNG, so they're transparent. The next one is Squarespace, which is also a web-based platform where you can start building your landing page, so it even becomes interactive. It's more than just a static image. And that was the last. These were all the little hacks that you could implement to become a visual designer yourself. If you have any questions for me or previous presenters, don't hesitate to ask. And if not, I'd like to invite you all to have a drink from the fridge.
Are there still any questions left? Or I can proceed to present.
For the ideation, how difficult is it to define the specific goal in the ideation phase and the context and the scope that you stay in?
That's a difficult one. I'm gonna pass this
Yeah, it's a difficult process. It's a process in itself. I think we have some canvases for it as well. We could show all of them. But one of the useful canvases I find is when you immediately address why are you doing this project, and you have several goals. It's like, or it's for marketing purposes, or it's to generate more revenue, or it's for, there's always a purpose, and mostly the 8 people in the room don't align on that. I think it's, if you immediately confront them with questions, is it to generate more? Select your top 3, like you don't have to, this is for more revenue, this is for marketing, you let people do that exercise, you already get to a certain alignment in that as well. And sometimes design sprints are also designed, let's say, to explore 6 different directions to help you actually make that decision. For example, I think for example, the bar case that you just saw, we ended up virtual reality. But in the beginning, they were looking at finance, they were looking at energy, they were looking at so many different topics they could be part of. And it was actually part of the sprint, but it was a bigger sprint with more people. And each of them went in that sprint on that topic. And it was only at the end of the week that they decided, when they had a first idea of what this market could be, that they made a decision. So I think you can do it in a 4-hour workshop. Sometimes it takes for a sprint already to make the first alignment, because of course that defines everything where you go. I mean, you say, for example, we want to do something already within energy, then yeah, whatever you're gonna do, it's always gonna be within energy. Or if you say it has to stay within our current target group channel, so it has to, I mean, there is one that what I said is the addressable markets, or the purposes is one. Another frame that we use is, I think most of you probably know it, it's 2 axes. And the one says how far you're willing to go from your target group, and the other one is how far are you willing to go away from your product. And basically, you're at the core is where the axes start, and then the further you go away from there, further you come into disruptive innovation for your company, not existent, not for the world, maybe for your company. And it's always good to ask people that question: how far do you want to go? That defines already a lot, because if they say we want to stay within our current target group, or current, if it's a production company, current production techniques, yeah, then you already know that that's the limit, or it's a workshop by itself. It's not just they never come in. We go always in such wide discussions. They never come in and say, this is the briefing, fix it. Because that's what I mean, you really mess up the whole week if you don't have it. So it's very important, because if it's not there, you mess it up.
The interesting one is that you can kind of define your scope in 2 directions. You can do it either top down and start from the why and the purpose and the goals and the values of your company and assets that you have. You can also do it bottom up and start from like examples or inspiring business models, hero cases that you spotted in the market, and then use these to really kind of see, like, do you like this case? Do you like this business model? What do you kind of find inspiring? What do you want to work with? So you can, it's when you scope, you always have to go top down and bottom up, in my opinion, and try to make it again tangible, your discussion, because if you only go the top down way, it risks to be kind of a very, very fluffy discussion.
Okay, one last input is we also have a blog post on 5 posters that we use to kickstart the innovation process. So you can also go and see there, you can also download them there. Those are like 5 generic ones that we sometimes use. So if you
You must have you were talking about the access.
Yeah.
You can have magic when you do that. Because when you do that, there's also like a discussion.
Yeah,
And you see, oh, it goes up.
yeah,
It's a great 45 inch.
good one. That's a good one. Other questions?
You mentioned the fact that one of the big risks after brainstorming or ideation sprint is that the idea is just put in the fridge and never comes out. I also have a bit the frustration about the change culture or the innovation culture. That during the brainstorming or the ideation, you have like this really innovative mindset and you feel there's something going on. And then maybe that's the thing that gets into the friction. How do you avoid that, or how can you keep this or keep using the tools or things like that, or what are the tricks to try to continue on that line?
That's a good one for you.
Okay. You were talking about the mindset and also.
Yeah, and I work a lot with entrepreneurs initiative. I don't know if you've seen Bundl's website. We interview entrepreneurs, and I think it goes a little bit towards understanding that. I think there's no company today that will say, "I don't want innovation to come in." They would not be doing themselves a favor. But you are right. After we go through a sprint, for it to survive, the team goes from maybe 7 stakeholders internally down to core 3 to 4 max people who will have to carry that flag. Now, the mandate for them is they're not going against the grain of the company. This is something entrepreneurs always teach us. But they are bringing into the company ways of moving faster than the company would normally do. So a way of keeping that survival is if you're going to commit to a venture or to a new business unit or to a new department, is to really set milestones with the stakeholders at managerial level. So they know what will be delivered. And this is something that we don't often do with our clients, which is, okay, we might go away now, and maybe only coming once a week, but what are the milestones that you've committed? And what needs to be delivered? What is expected? And so what we do is check-ins. We make sure that we engage you and you engage us in more conversation. It could be interviewing what's happening in the company, and interviewing and understanding the pulse check of innovation. So we try to create as many activities until you feel you have delivered that innovation. Now, at the end of it, it's not finished, right? Because what we see is that companies that start innovating become, to an extent, reoccurring serial innovators. And that's why we've had actually stumbled across the fact that a lot of brands we work with are repeat brands that come back to us. So, but it's really keeping that eye open for innovation and letting us talk to you and you talk to us.
I think it's also important that you give, a lot of companies make a mistake, I think, to not give full dedication and thus also not full responsibility to people that are going to continue. If they can only spend 40% of their time on something, there's 2 impacts of that. One is they're going slower after the sprint, and the second is they always have an umbrella, which is, yeah, but I didn't have enough time because I was working on this priority or that priority. And I think it's important that certain stakeholders, I mean, it doesn't have to be all the people, but at least some stakeholders, sounds maybe a bit wrong, but that they have to take responsibility because otherwise they also fail. So it's most of the entrepreneur. I mean, if you look at an entrepreneur, in essence, because they make a lot of shiny things about them, but in the end, they are running also for survival a lot of times. And I think you have to create that kind of survival instinct also in the people that you have. And if you give them full ownership and that's their own responsibility, and otherwise they fail, they start running for survival. And I think that's, I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs are running around like that, and that's what keeps them going. And I think you have to kind of create that. And if everybody does it with 20% of the time, it's going to be a very fun sprint week, but afterwards, it's just going to fall down and everybody's going back to their home.
Yeah, it's not Club Med.
No, you have to realize it's not going to be Club because it could be the validation you already crashed already once you
It's also about managing expectations. You have to communicate up front that after a sprint, it's not over. In some cases, people think that you're gonna, even when one day workshop, I think we do a 1-day workshop, and our new vision is kind of created. Oh, it starts then. So managing expectations, I think, in your company about innovation is also very important. So this is it. You're still alive. Yeah, we invite you to.
I think Bob just prepared something surprise to me, and so we're going to have a drink. Thanks for coming. It was great that you guys took
the effort of walking, driving through the snow, is still spending time with us. So thank you very much.
If you have feedback, always send it to us. We like feedback. So if you have the time tomorrow in front of you, you can say that part was boring or this could be better. Or that was amazing. So just spare us maybe tonight. So we thank you.
Question.